Hello and welcome back. Today is a little different for us because we won't just be focusing on the UK. Of course, there are particular cases that are based in the UK, but we will be looking around the world at different cases. And these cases are on ex-fellow creators. They didn't just leave the platform because they wanted something new, they grew tired of content. They left the platform because they took the lives of others. Today we are looking at YouTubers turned killers. So let's jump straight into the cases. First we start off with Pekka-Eric Sesler. Pekka-Eric Sesler was born on the 3rd of August 1989. He was born and grew up in Llers, Texas in America. And there are no significant reports of his upbringing as a young child. His father was a teacher and his mum worked as a journalist for the local paper. He was described as being quite normal. He was just a normal, average American kid, which was the same for his upbringing. The first time he came in contact or on the police's radar was when he was 13 years old. He called the local police saying he saw a suspicious shadow, but this wasn't the truth. He actually wanted to trap the police officer and then attack him, steal the police officer's weapon and use it to take the life of his friend, but the plan didn't work. Because of this situation, he was evaluated and nothing came from this assessment. He continued at school as normal and the police dropped the case. His family and his friends just saw this as a bad phase. He then started his YouTube channel. This wasn't a shock or surprise to any of his friends and family or anyone who knew him because he had a real keen interest in filmmaking. In the description of his YouTube channel, it says, "I've been working on filmmaking for the past 5 years. Several years ago I started the Mr. Anime review show, which has reached solid popularity." On YouTube he was known as Lenscap Productions. He was also known as Mr. Anime. He loved films and on his YouTube channel his main focus, of course by the name, was reviewing anime. He started his channel on September 14th, 2006 and created 322 videos. His first videos were short films of himself and sometimes on the rare occasion his brother and parents. The channel then moved to anime reviews and he changed his name to Mr. Anime. People really enjoyed his reviews. He didn't overdo his personality. He was very direct and very black and white. If he was critical of any anime, he gave constructive criticism as to why. People just thought he was a down-to-earth, normal guy. He had 18.6k subscribers, which nowadays doesn't seem like a lot, but back then, that is pretty decent. It was between 2006, 2007 to 2011 where his YouTube channel focused on anime reviews and video games. He is actually credited with being one of the first YouTubers to review anime and create that sub-genre of reviewing that content. And again, although 18.6k isn't loads of subscribers in today's standards, lots of people in that sub-genre of the internet knew who he was. He was well known in that part of the internet. Then his channel slowly started to change and he started to create content around firearms. He would do dramatizations using various weapons. He would demonstrate with the firearms. Sometimes he would fire into buildings or at unknown locations. But he was still the same guy. There was never really a concern from his audience because in some of these videos he would condemn gun violence and spoke on being responsible when owning a firearm, which will become ironic as we make our way further into this case. In 2011, he moved into his grandmother's home. She had recently passed away. It was left empty, and he was there to look after the home while things were sorted out behind the scenes. But it was also because his relationship with his dad started to break down, and he lived there on his own. Although on the outside, in his videos and to his YouTube community, he seemed like the same guy, Mr. Anime. But this was actually the furthest thing from the truth. He had actually left college early and gave up, and his father was not happy with this decision, and this is what broke down their relationship. In 2011, he actually told a friend that he wanted to take the life of his dad because he felt like his dad had decided that by not going to college he had ruined his life and was a failure. He also had a bad relationship with alcohol, and his brother and father would confront him about these issues, and this resulted in huge family arguments, which is why when their grandmother passed away, he went to live in her home on his own, and because clearly it wasn't going smoothly in the family home. As stated previously, his content started to change. His audience thought he was still the normal guy, but he wasn't. He started researching and watching about American school crimes. I can't actually say what these crimes are, but I'm sure you will understand what they are, and he became obsessed with the culprits who committed them, especially the Columbine crime. He downloaded a satellite image of his former school, Llers High School, to map out the way he could harm people the most. He would analyse past events to see what the people in Columbine did incorrectly, as well as other crimes in similar vein, and he wanted to cause the most carnage. He actually devised a plot that he was to run through the high school gate with his car, then get out with his firearm and take as many lives as possible. Whereas before, his internet community weren't aware, some people did become concerned with whispers around that side of the internet. He used live animals in his demonstrations, and there was a change quite swiftly in his content again. They became more graphic, and even his content structure changed. The reviews used to be very routine. He was clear and concise, gave fair critical reviews, whereas his later videos were very chaotic. He wasn't even coherent in what he was saying, and the videos had no direction. He uploaded his last ever YouTube video on March 13th, 2012, where he told his audience that he had a brand new job with a film company. He would still produce YouTube videos, but not as often as he once did. But this was all a delusion, because he was never offered a job, and his situation remained the same. In the same month, in March 19th, 2012, he stayed up all night drinking. And the next morning, he returned to the family home with some of the firearms that he had actually reviewed in his videos. His mother, father and brother were at home. A call was rang into police saying that they had heard unexpected noises, but the police didn't arrive until later on in the day, when a family member said they had heard nothing from any family member. The police looked into the windows first after no one answered the door, and that's when they saw the crime scene. Sesler had lured his mother, Rhonda, to the garage and took her life. His father is believed to have been asleep at the time. Sesler then walked back inside the home and took the life of his brother. At this point, his father was awoken by the gunshots. He then took the life of his father. After doing this, he carved things into the wall such as, "I love my mum, dad and brother. God forgive me because I cannot forgive myself," all over the family home. He then proceeded to wreck the family home. There was glass everywhere. Everything had been damaged. He then packed his car with firearms and ammunition and drove to the high school, the school that he had made the plot against, but only sat in the car park. He never went through with his plan. He was arrested at a friend's house later that night. He was questioned and admitted to law enforcement that it was him. He said he was also ready to take fire at the school, and his aim was to take the lives of at least 70 people. And the reason he took the lives of his family was to protect them, so they wouldn't feel the shame or embarrassment from the crime he was going to commit at the school. He said if anyone was going to hurt them, it would be me. He also told officers when he took the life of his mother he regretted it, but it was far too late and he had to take the lives of his brother and dad. He said that when he got to his old school he felt a wave of what he had just done and wasn't able to carry on. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole at no later date for taking the lives of Rhonda, his father Lawton and his brother Mark. After the crime, he contacted extended family members and apologised for his actions. His cousin, Dr. Robin Warner, said the family did not know about his online activities. Warner residents were deeply disturbed by the case. Investigators found a list that Sesler had created on his computer, which studied and graded at least 8 killers. As of 2025, Sesler is serving his sentence in Texas. Now we make our way back to the UK and look at Stephen McCullagh. He created his YouTube account in 2010, uploaded his first video in the April, and he was known as Vote Saxon 07, which is a reference to Doctor Who. His content was reviewing toys and merchandise of Doctor Who to start off with, but this turned into reviewing lots of other merchandise and toys, quite a lot from the sci-fi world, including Star Wars and Star Trek. He built up a solid audience because of his knowledge in all these subjects, but this branched out to almost any merchandise. There was reviews on Disney products of the latest films or Pixar, any toys. He was really in the section online of the kind of nerd culture, which isn't a slight because I'm a massive nerd myself. His reviews were honest. He would brutally give his opinion if a toy wasn't good or didn't do what it was supposed to, but in the same tune he really let viewers know of the good quality products, and he would usually use a lot of humour. He then started to dive into filmmaking, displaying his creations on his YouTube channel by about 2013. He also started to modify toys himself. He still kept up with his reviews, but he would melt products down, add things to the toys, making the toys a better product. Alongside his toy reviews, as well as his modification of toys, as well as his filmmaking, he would do short little films of his interpretation of humour. He then started getting more personal with his audience and let his audience know how his parents were elderly and were unwell, and did donations to help him with finances with his parents. His father was featured in some videos on his channel, so when his father passed away he let his subscribers know, and the same could be said for his mother when she passed. Outside of this, he actually went on to a TV show called Robot Wars, which was quite popular in the UK. He was part of a Robot Wars team, and for him, he loved Doctor Who, he loved Robot Wars, so this was a dream come true. With the Robot Wars feature and his other bits and bobs, keeping up with his reviews, he built a solid following. His content went along as usual until December 18th, 2022. He hosted a live stream on his YouTube called The Violent Night from his home in Northern Ireland. He was playing GTA and it was around 5 hours long, and it seemed like a usual live stream, although he didn't do live streams often and his main source of content was videos. But what his audience didn't know is actually how sinister the stream was. He had a girlfriend who was pregnant with their first child called Natalie McNally. She was found with her life taken the next day on the 19th of December. As usual, in the investigation, he was arrested, and his proof that he did not take her life was that he couldn't have. He was streaming for 5 hours on his YouTube when the crime took place. He was actually cleared, but as the investigation went on and there were no suspects, they started to look into him a little more. In the local area, there was actually a march wanting to seek justice for Natalie, and he attended this march. But the police started to look. They wanted to really check out his alibi. And the first thing that they noticed was, like I said before, he actually didn't live stream very often, and his stream seemed to be very unplanned, with him only letting his audience know he was going live on Twitter a couple of hours before. He also entered his stream by saying he had technical difficulties and he wouldn't be checking the live chat and would not be interacting with his audience. In the hours of the stream, he acted very strange, talking about the police randomly and talking of crime, proclaiming, "I just stick to crime in video games because I'm sadistic." He also repeatedly said he needed to take the life of a woman in game. He ended his stream by saying Merry Christmas and how Christmas isn't about adults anymore, it's about the younger generation. He told police when he ended the stream he then went straight to sleep. He then went to Natalie's flat the next day, which is where he discovered her. He rang the police and the paramedics said that it was apparent she was attacked the night before. As well as going through his stream, they went through CCTV of the area and phone records. At 7 p.m, he was seen on a bus wearing 2 sets of gloves. He arrived at Natalie's home at 8:45 p.m. with a black duffel bag. Neighbours heard a scream at 9 p.m, and then he left with a different set of clothes on. He took a taxi home. They then looked at the stream in more detail and realised that the stream never was actually live. It was made to seem like it was live, which is why he said he would not look at the live chat. It was all a lie. He had pre-recorded and pretended to stream to use it as an alibi. It was recorded on the 13th of December. Before the discovery of his live stream and the evidence that built up against him, he actually went to see Natalie's parents and he played the role of the heartbroken boyfriend. But it was found he was recording Natalie's parents while he was at their house. He was arrested and charged with murder. He is now on trial for the murder of Natalie and has not been sentenced. He had his bail hearing where it was declined. Mr. Justice O'Hara said that he of Woodland Gardens in Lisbon was also a master of media manipulation. If released, the 33-year-old would potentially interfere with witnesses. Prosecution barristers told the court that the crime was executed with a great deal of planning and premeditation, which is highly significant. His trial is set for Tuesday, the 6th of May, 2025, and I will do an update video on his sentence. And now we find ourselves in Finland to look at our next case of Pekka-Eric Auvinen. He was born in 1989 and had a younger brother. Their upbringing was normal. It was a usual family home. They lived around an hour from Helsinki. His parents were both musicians, so the two boys also took up this love for music. He wasn't allowed to play video games, or when he did, they had to be non-violent. At primary school, he did really well. He had a close set of friends and he never got in any trouble. He was described as shy, but when you got to know him, very talkative. As he got older, his grades really started to drop, and he also struggled to make friends. He was very isolated. He was also teased at school. His parents contacted the school about this and the parents of the bully. Now, this could be called overprotective parenting or just being a good parent. But nothing came from this, and because his parents got involved, he was called a baby. When he was 14, he started to sink into politics, especially communism, natural selection, and the idea of survival of the fittest. The more older he got, the more he sunk into this online politics and the more isolated he became. He would also dress very differently in trench coats, and not that it matters if he dressed differently in school, but he was already teased, he didn't have any friends, and this was another reason for people to pick on him. This loneliness created anxiety. He went to his school for help with his anxiety, and he was prescribed medication in 2006, but this medication had no effect. In 2007, his parents referred him to a psychiatric clinic, but they were denied as he was not seen as a major concern. He was just given a higher dose of his medication. Meanwhile, he became obsessed with American-like crimes. Again, like our first case we covered, especially Columbine, he then would seek solace in that side of the internet. He was on YouTube and he was called Natural Selector 89. On his channel, he posted videos filming himself talking on certain crimes, and he would speak out against religion. He would tell his viewers he was actually God himself, saying, "You are worshipping wrong fictional gods. I am the Antichrist of my own life." He would talk on subjects that were quite violent, as well as talking of intercourse. And he didn't like women. He would call them manipulative and lots of other nasty words. In 2007, he started to make diary entries with a plan to take the lives of as many people as possible at his previous school. In March 2007, he said even if he was to die himself, he would be remembered forever, and he would call this plan an attack on humanity. He also started to write his manifesto, and then asked his parents if he was allowed to go shooting. He wanted to do this as a hobby, and his parents thought nothing really negative about this. It would get him out of the house, he would be less isolated, maybe he would meet new friends. He went to a shooting range and joined the Helsinki Shooting Club, and he only went for a 1-hour session. When he reached 18, he didn't apply for jobs and would spend most of his time in his bedroom playing video games and blogging on his YouTube or in forums on the internet. It was during this time that his parents reported him as being aggressive. He also started to talk to them about the things he talked about on his YouTube, about the crimes. He threatened them that there should be a revolution, and he just had very extreme views. The manner in which he spoke to his parents changed. A youth worker was contacted and he was spoken to on 3 separate occasions, but nothing came from it. His head teacher was aware and said they would keep an eye on him, but again, nothing came from it. Another YouTuber called The Amazing Atheist actually made a video calling him out about his obsessions with these crimes and his radical beliefs. He actually said that he needs to be looked at by other agencies. In the summer of 2007, he met a German woman online. She was called Tana, and they became online girlfriend and boyfriend. They then split up because she got with another man who had the same extreme views in the forums. They sent lots of messages to each other, and when they split up, he told her, "This is killing me from the inside." It's in this same year, 2007, he also decided that he didn't want to take his medication. He started to skip classes, and in the October, he got a license for firearms. On October 3rd, 2007, he got a permit to purchase a weapon. He said he wanted this for precision shooting. On October 19th, 2007, he managed to get the weapon. He then removed his YouTube channel and created a new one, Sturmgeist 89. He purchased a firearm in the same year with 1,000 rounds of ammunition. He then uploaded a video onto his new YouTube account reviewing this firearm. His ex-girlfriend said congratulations, and he responded to her saying weak-minded, worthless person. Her current online boyfriend responded by attacking him, calling him silly or stupid, and saying that his thoughts were generic. Basically, they were all part of this very radical environment of the internet and were arguing all over the forums and on his new YouTube account. Himself was still in the forums about the Columbine crime, discussing the culprits. In these forums, he said he would actually go to a school armed. His parents had no idea that he had a firearm, and the night before his awful crime took place, he wrote a goodbye letter to his family, telling them he wanted the world to be a better place to live in. The next morning, on the 7th of November 2007, he was late for school because he uploaded a video of his school and what he was going to do. He sent messages to his ex-girlfriend Tana and another YouTuber. He apologised to her and she said, "Do it correctly. You said it publicly, so you need to apologise publicly." He apologised again to her. He sent her, "I guess it's time to say goodbye now. I have my destiny to fulfill. I won't talk to you or anyone else anymore." He then made a post on one of these forums saying history would be made and uploaded his manifesto, stating all his political ideologies. He then got on his bike a mile away and arrived at his school at 11:37 a.m. with his firearm. He entered through the basement where he saw a student. He took his life. He then went into the bathroom. Other students heard the sounds and called emergency services. He then opened fire. He chased those trying to flee. The school nurse told students to run, let authorities and other teachers know what was happening. The nurse was also attacked. 6 people were injured while trying to flee. The headmistress told all students to lock the doors. He then started to fire randomly. A mother of a student actually came into the building and he came across her, but he didn't attack her. He went up to other floors and there were students just chatting. The saddest part is, because this is very rare in Finland, a lot of students just believed it was like a drill. It wasn't really happening. He then went back down to the ground floor and the head teacher was outside on the phone. He came out of the building and took her life point blank. He then went into the school again to a window and tried to shoot at the police and emergency services. He sat near the main entrance firing for quite a while. He then gave up and went to the bathroom and he took his own life. 8 people lost their lives and 13 others were injured. After the crime took place, of course, there was a review into licenses. His parents too spoke out, and on most accounts they were seen as good parents. Ultimately, they actually tried to get him help for a long time, and they were never helped. He was seen as not a concern. They rang police, they let the school know. It's a very, very sad case. And 8 people lost their lives, and all those who were at school that day, their lives have been changed forever. Now we move back to the UK and take a look at Jake Davison. Jake was born in Plymouth and lived with his mum Maxine. She was a single mum. Jake had 2 older siblings. His dad was called Mark and they lived in the Shetland Islands. He was a local fisherman but a thug with addiction issues, and when Maxine fell pregnant with Jake, they split up. She moved to Plymouth with Jake, and his 2 older siblings, Zoe and Josh, remained with their father. Jake and Maxine would visit their siblings frequently, and the family began to notice that although he was very quiet and shy, he was also very aggressive when triggered. His mum, Maxine, got him assessed and he was diagnosed with autism. He was sent to a school for children with special needs and learning difficulties, and he didn't really make a lot of friends. He was very close to his mum, but never went out with anyone else. And he used the internet to find friends instead. As he got older, his outlook started to change. He really wanted a girlfriend, and he struggled to get one. He was obsessed with having a relation for the first time, and he would discuss this on his YouTube channel. He was known as Professor Waffle. On this YouTube channel, he wasn't actually the boy everyone else described him as. In the real world, he was shy, unsocial, but on his YouTube, he was completely different. He was confident and would speak openly about his views. In some of these videos, he would blame himself for his appearance, especially his weight. At the age of 17 in 2016, he received a warning from police for attacking a man and his pregnant girlfriend. It was unprovoked. He attacked the man, but he wasn't arrested, and it was dropped, and he never got a criminal record. He applied for a firearms license in 2018 because at this point he was engrossed in Reddit and YouTube talking of firearms with his internet friends. He didn't give a reason as to why he should have a firearm, but it was approved, and he went and got a weapon. He then became very hateful of his mother, Maxine, who he was once very close to, because his ideologies had changed. There was a hatefulness for women, and they really disagreed on this. He got a job as a scaffolder and would go onto his YouTube and onto Reddit moaning about her and the hatred he had for her, as well as other women. He was basically a complete incel. In his YouTube videos, he called women simple-minded and not intelligent. They only cared about money or looks. He would post on the internet that he was entitled to a woman, but he was doomed to be alone. In Reddit, he would talk in threads of the incel movement and on topics that were positive surrounding firearms. He believed that unless you were physically attractive or had lots of money, you will never ever get to be with a woman. And this is why SA and these sort of crimes had risen, because they don't want or need many anymore, and they're only interested in that type of man. He also frequented forums with the take that life was not worth living. His family noticed the change and they really tried to get him help, and there was nothing they could get. Instead, his mother, Maxine, rang the police telling them of his change in behaviour and that he needed a welfare check, but the police didn't arrive, and they never did. In 2020, he had a disagreement and a fight with two teenagers, and police took away his weapon and his licence. The police then reviewed the case and said if he went to anger management, he would get both back. So he attended the anger management course and they were handed right back to him. On the 12th of August 2021, it was a very hot day in the UK. People were out and about, and it was the summer holidays for kids. Jake Davison on that day decided it was his mum's fault for his life and why he didn't have a girlfriend. And the night before, he had his Reddit account banned for making remarks to a 16-year-old girl, and this was the tip of the iceberg for him. He argued with his mother Maxine, and then he used his firearm and took her life. He then went out of the house and went down his road. Lee Martin was across the road with his daughter. They were both hit with the firearm. He then continued walking and he put shots at two others, but they survived. He then went to a small park. Stephen Washington was walking his dog. He used his firearm again and Stephen lost his life. He then started shooting at random. At a salon, Kate Shepherd was outside taking a cigarette. She lost her life. At that point, he could hear the sirens coming and he continued walking. He said to one person, "There's nothing to worry about, mate." He then took his own life when police arrived. He had injured 2 people and took the life of his mother Maxine, who was 51, 3-year-old Sophie Martin, her father Lee Martin, who was 43, Stephen Washington, who was walking his dog, who was 59, and Kate Shepherd, who was 66. There was a massive review, especially in how he managed to get a firearm, get his license taken away, and then have it returned to him. In the UK, firearm license are very hard to get. It's very rare. There was also a review into the mental health issues with the violent outbursts. How did he manage to get a license? His mum asked for help. He never got mental health help. The weapon was returned to him. It was a failure all across the board. The 2 officers who gave the license back were disciplined, and from that point, now when wanting a gun license, laws changed and officers have to investigate all social media profiles across the UK. As well as they started to look at those already with a license and look at what they posted on their social media, whether there was any radical views. And although this change is good, the way it was handled, it doesn't bring back the lives of the victims. This next case is similar to the case we have just covered, but this time we are in America. Elliot Rodger was described as an incel. He was born in 1991 to his father, Peter Rodger, who was a British filmmaker, and his mother, who was a nurse on movie sets. He had a younger sister. When Elliot was 5, they moved from London to LA, and he was a very well-behaved kid. By 7 years old, his mum and dad divorced, and he became more shy and more withdrawn. His father met a new lady, and they were introduced very quickly. Elliot Rodger didn't like his stepmom, and this continued, but his life was very good. He lived a life of luxury, but this didn't help his social life. He had a few friends, but was bullied at school. When he was 13, his father and stepmom had their own child, and this is when he started his YouTube channel. It was called Elliot's Blog, where he talked about how he felt lonely. He also talks about his bullying. He was switched out of schools because of this bullying and still never made friends. His parents also made him see a psychiatrist, and at the age of 16 he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But he put on his YouTube that he wouldn't take his medication. At 18, he did have a couple of friends, but they were mainly online, and he spoke openly to his parents about no girls liking him and having no friends. So he decided to learn to drive and tried to be more confident and changed his style and fashion. Yet this made no difference. He made no friends because he was so unconfident to speak to those at school. Instead, he spent his evenings gaming, playing Halo and World of Warcraft, and he became more and more angry. He hated even seeing couples because he had never been with a woman. He moved to Santa Barbara College, and he shared a student home with 2 others, but he hated his other housemates and they would argue constantly. They moved out and 2 new housemates moved in. In 2012, he dropped out of college and would gamble lots, as his idea was if he was super rich, he would get a girlfriend and lots of attention from women. He also continued to blog on his YouTube, talking about where he found himself in his life, contemplating how unfair his life is, and talking about women not desiring him and how he didn't understand why. He then started going to the local firing range as he had plans to take out the unfairness onto other women. He couldn't thrive among them, so he must take their lives. He purchased firearms after this, and on the 20th of July 2013 he attended a party and spoke to a woman, but he was ignored by her, which fueled him to be even more angry. He tried to push some girls off a ledge at the party, but he was pushed himself and he was beaten up. This led him to break his leg, and from this point he started to plan his crime. He was still blogging to YouTube. He would film himself in his car watching sunsets and talking about how no woman was attracted to him and how it was unfair. He was intelligent, he was very good looking, and their attraction was so flawed, and he deserved who he wanted. This continued for a few months, and someone actually watched the videos and reported him to the police. Police interrogated him on his mental health, but he told them he was fine and it was just YouTube videos. They never searched the house or found his plans and firearms. He had planned to take the life of his stepmother and his younger brother. Then he would drive back to his student home and take the lives of his housemates. He would then go to a student house, which was female, a house that he deemed were attractive. His father was not out of town, so he decided he couldn't take the life of his brother or stepmother, and before setting out he uploaded a YouTube video stating it was his last video before his day of retribution and the day he will have revenge against humanity, calling himself an alpha male and telling his audience women will pay for it. On the 23rd of May 2014 he attacked his two housemates and took their lives, as well as a friend that was visiting. He sent his manifesto to 34 people, his parents and extended family, his therapist and childhood friends. Within 5 minutes, his therapist contacted his parents and police. They travelled to the student housing. He went to the female student building, but no one answered the door, so he took the lives of 2 other women in another building. And then he walked into a shop and took the life of another student. He then drove down a road shooting. 3 officers began firing at him, but he fled. He crashed into a cyclist and then took his own life. He took the lives of George Chen, Cheng Hong, Wei Han Wang, Catherine Cooper, Christopher Ross, Michael Martinez and Veronica Weiss. Next we move on to a female, Samantha Wohlford. She was born in Texas in Mount Pleasant on the 28th of August 1989. She was the eldest of 3 siblings and she had a good upbringing. As a teenager, she loved the internet. She was on her PC or her phone all the time. At 19, she had her first boyfriend and she fell pregnant with twins, but this relationship broke down and she became a single mum. But she wasn't a single mum for long. In 2008, she went to a local tattoo parlour. She got a tattoo and met a man called Ernie. They had a great connection and they began dating. He was born on Christmas Day in 1985. He also had a normal upbringing. He was very close to his family, and his family described him as kind and loving. He loved to play games, especially Halo and Call of Duty. They had a great relationship at first. It was that honeymoon period. Ernie earned enough money to support her and her twins. They had a nice family home. In 2011, she fell pregnant with hers and Ernie's first child, and it was twins again. He got a second job to help out. And in 2013, when she was 24, she had her final baby with Ernie. Their relationship soon started to sour. It was the usual arguments, but this got worse and worse. They had children, young children. He worked a lot and she was at home. It was those usual arguments after you have a child, but she also liked a lot of attention and would get jealous very easily. She didn't like the amount of time that Ernie spent on games when he wasn't at work. As well as Call of Duty and Halo, he also played a lot of role-playing online games. He had friends online, but in one of these games, he got married in the game to another female character. Samantha did not like this, and to sort of try and stop this argument or make her feel like he loved her, they actually got engaged shortly after this. The amount of time he gamed really bothered Samantha. She would say that he would spend more time gaming than with her and the children, but for him it was his hobby. He worked really hard, and this was his escape. Because of this, she decided she wanted something for herself, and she created her own YouTube. She was called Simply Manic 6075. And at first she would talk about TV shows, YouTube, general pop culture shows and television, but then she started to answer subscriber questions and talk about herself. She would talk about her life outside of YouTube, how her life was hard. She vented about being a mother and how her relationship with Ernie was slowly breaking down. She would tell her subscribers that she didn't have a job and she would spend most of the day watching telly, and in some of these videos you can actually hear her children in the background. She would upload more on a regular basis and engaged more and more with her subscribers. She had a big ego because of this. Her content turned into her opinions, and she was very opinionated. Her life and her just talking, and she became obsessed with her online persona, her YouTube channel. She began really obsessing over it, checking comments, always wanting to engage, and she thought she was going to be a big time YouTuber. And at the time she had a YouTube, she was only getting around 100 views. When she was on her YouTube and creating this, well, this didn't improve her relationship with Ernie, and they were both not happy. It kind of seems like they stayed for the kids. She also told her subscribers more and more personal information. She would tell them how bad Ernie was as a father and a husband, and how he was abusive towards her and her children. She also rang the police on multiple occasions, but he was never arrested and there was never any evidence of abuse. His family have insisted that he was a kind-natured man and would never do this, and she made up these stories for attention. On the 20th of February 2015, she rang her auntie and then rang the police to say there was a home invasion. When the auntie arrived, she said her niece was tied up, telling the police that the invader had hit her husband Ernie in the face and dragged him out of the home. The police arrived at 2:20 a.m. and she was in a panic, telling them that all three men were dressed in black, broke into their home and kidnapped Ernie, that she was then taken upstairs and tied up. She managed to call for help, but Ernie was not at the home. Samantha said she had no idea who the intruders are, but police noticed things didn't quite sit right. Why did Samantha ring her auntie first and not the police? How was she able to ring her auntie if she was tied up? And why were all the children who were at home that night sleeping in the same bed on that particular evening? Police started to look into her, and she was taken into custody for questioning. And while she was questioned, her stories kept changing. And then she started to pin it onto her friend's boyfriend. She told police that she told her friend and her friend's boyfriend, Jonathan Sanford, that Ernie was abusive to her and her children, and he said he would sort the situation out. Jonathan was investigated by police, and he was just out of prison for an assault. He was described as a bully. Jonathan Sanford was arrested, along with Jose Ponce and Octavius Rhymes. Samantha said she had nothing to do with it. The police took all of their mobile phones, and through further investigation, it emerged that when the police arrived at her home on the evening of the crime, she said she was making a phone call to her mother. It turns out she actually texted Octavius Rhymes to shut his phone down. She then sent another text saying, "Ditch the phone and move." When confronted, she said she had taken a prescription medicine and she didn't remember actually sending any of those texts. They looked in their phones some more, and they actually admitted to taking Ernie's life. After this, they gave the police a location of where Ernie could be found. Jonathan said that all three of them agreed to help get rid of Ernie after she told them he was abusive to her and the kids. The plan was to actually OD him and get him arrested for having substances on him, but all four of them thought they'd just take his life. She actually gave her kids a high dose of medication so they slept longer, and that's when they staged the break-in. They abducted him and hijacked Samantha's car. Ernie didn't know who they were, and it was actually said, which is so sad, that he begged them not to take his life, his wife's life, or his kids. He was then taken to a remote forest and they used a firearm and took his life. Jonathan Sanford and Jose Ponce pleaded guilty to aggravated kidnapping and murder. They got a sentence of 50 years each. Octavius Rhymes didn't plead guilty, but was found guilty and received 98 years. Samantha Wohlford was sentenced to 50 years for kidnapping. She was then sentenced to 99 years for murder. She is serving her sentence in Dickinson in Texas. Now is the case of YouTuber Randy Stair. Randy was born in Pennsylvania on the 17th of September 1992. He had one younger brother. He lived at home with his younger brother, his mum and his dad, and had a normal, good childhood. He was described as very shy and he liked not to be noticed. He always liked his own company. He really loved cartoon shows and animations, especially Nickelodeon. Like I said, he had a few friends, but he definitely liked to be by himself. And in June 2008, he started a YouTube channel called Pioneer Productions, and he created comedy short movies and series with various different characters, but the main characters were a frog toy as well as a whale, which was a teddy bear. As well as YouTube and school, he then started working at McDonald's in 2012, but he only lasted 3 hours. His parents were not happy with him because he was 18 years old and they believed he needed to earn money. So he got another job working with his dad at Wise Supermarket. His dad was the manager of the supermarket. In 2011, he became a YouTube partner, and that meant he could actually start earning money. He was overjoyed by reaching this goal, and he talked about being a filmmaker and animator, and this would definitely help him on his journey. He got a new PC and started working with other YouTubers here and there, as well as graduating high school, and then he went to college. He called himself a brony. It's to do with My Little Pony. I will let you research that. And he loved Inside Out and Frozen. He really loved anything animated. He would do some gaming and he would make lots of secondary channels of his short comedy films, editing. He really did love animation and filmmaking. But then he became obsessed with one cartoon character. There was a show called Danny Phantom on Nickelodeon, and Danny Phantom was a teenage boy who became a sort of human ghost hybrid, and he had to save the world. And one character that was in it was Ember, and she was a female ghost who could hypnotize her enemies. She was seen as seductive and rebellious, and Randy Stair became absolutely obsessed with her. She wasn't actually in a lot of episodes. He would say that she was his first crush, and she helped him through many struggles in his real life. He would say that Ember, the fictional character, understood him and they had feelings for each other, and it was life-changing. They were in love. I feel like we can all, when we were younger, have actors, actresses, even fictional characters maybe, that you may have had a crush on. But when it gets to the level of saying that you were in love with them or they helped change your life, this was a clear sign of the delusion that he was living in and the struggles that he had with his mental health. In 2013, he went through some real struggles. He lost his friend and then lost his granddad, as well as him being in an accident himself, and this led him down a very dark path and actually made him question life and death. He would say that Ember, this fictional character, helped him through these periods, and he saw her as a goddess, as a queen, and he would refer to her as his baby. He said he knew her before he became human, and he actually created an alternate universe. He called it Ember's Ghost Squad, and he would create animations of this. It was a fan-made subgenre made by Randy Stair, and it was a group of ghosts, female ghosts, that would find people who wanted to take their own lives, and it was created for his YouTube channel, Pioneer's Production. He started creating Ember's Ghost Squad onto a new YouTube channel, and in 2014 he kind of aggressively took the life of his other characters in his original comedy sketches on his Pioneer channel. It was the frog I mentioned before and the whale, and in 2015 he posted his last video to Pioneer Productions, and Ember kind of comes to him and talks to him about their relationship, and he pretends to end his own life, and then he started a new YouTube channel and would be referred to as Andrew Blaze. In 2016, he lent more into animation, but he would also do gaming and other content, but he continued to talk on life and death and very dark subjects. He made a short film about finding yourself and looking yourself in the mirror. His content was very angry and dark, and he said that he was special and no one could understand him. Actually, the only person who could help him is Ember, and she knows who he is. He became obsessed with what would happen when you died, and he actually made the afterlife seem like a brand new adventure, that he would finally be with Ember. He thought he had to die so he could be with her. He was clearly in delusion and in a depressive state. To make Ember's Ghost Squad a real reality, he would also create social media accounts on Twitter, now known as X, of the different characters in his Ghost Squad animation, and they would talk to each other on Twitter, but obviously it was him talking to himself. He created several episodes, and he did share some of these episodes on YouTube, but they didn't pick up much traction, and his animation became more and more dark. He had actually collaborated with other YouTubers in the animation scene before, here and there, but because of how dark his animation was getting, actually a lot of other YouTubers declined to work with him. He uploaded a video in 2017, and this was the start of the unravelling of his delusion. This video he uploaded in 2017, he had a coin, and he would say that when he threw this coin, it would determine his fate, a lot like sort of Two-Face and Batman, and tails or heads would decide whether he would take his life at home or at the supermarket where him and his father worked, and he would take his own life and other people's. In this video, the fate was decided that it would be at the supermarket. Randy had 2 firearms. He actually called one firearm Rachel after a character in his animated series Ghost Squad, and another one Mackenzie, also after another character. And it was the same firearm that was used in Columbine, which is a running theme obviously in this video. He was quite obsessed and he would actually rant about the culprits being victims. He posted videos of this firearm and created natural selection shirts, which is the shirt one of the culprits used in the Columbine crime. He went on Twitter and uploaded an art piece which was very dark, and he would talk on all sorts of forums about these crimes, life and death. He actually made a video, 11 hours of footage before the crime he committed, talking of his opinions, his views on life and death, Ember. He said he was depressed and he talked of Ember and his plans to take his own life. He said he hated his father, that his dad doesn't know anything about him. All he cared about was him having to work and starting his own life, which his dad should have known he was never going to do. And all that was on his mind was women and his cartoons. His Girls Ghost Squad is basically what was forever on his mind. And he created this ghost squad for guys who are from Earth but die and then joined this squad. His final video was Goodbye Earth, and he ended the video with saying, "I'm more than just a cartoon. I'm going to be dead before next week. Thank you for the late nights and live streams and support and feedback. I hope I have made a difference for you, and sadly I'll never know. This is Andrew Blaze signing off for the last time. I'll see some of you soon. Andrew, out." He also talked again about his love for Ember, saying, "She changed everything. It's thanks to Ember." The night before the crime, he actually recorded the supermarket where he works on the night shift, and he especially recorded the exit points. At 11 p.m. on the 7th of June 2017, he arrived for his night shift as usual. He went to the staff area and blocked an emergency exit with his car. He then carried on and pretended to do his usual work. He uploaded an animated video to YouTube of his character and the Ghost Squad animated characters attacking a school. At 12:10 a.m. he posted a link to his plans and notes. He then blocked remaining exits with pallets and things within the shop. He armed himself with his firearms, and he had a t-shirt on that said "It's our time to rise," and then walked around the supermarket, taking the lives of 3 co-workers. He then went on to the 4th and stood behind her. She actually had headphones on, so didn't hear what was going on, but he decided not to take her life and continued on. When she took her headphones off and realised, she rang the police in the staff room, and by that point he had taken his own life. Police went to the supermarket within a few minutes and they found the crime scene. He took the lives of Victoria Brong, who was 25 years old, and the assistant manager. Brian Hayes, who was 47 years old, he was a night manager and a United States Navy veteran, and Terry Lee Sterling, who was a shop assistant and was aged 63. Randy Stairs had emailed 10 of his friends telling them what he was going to do, and shared his regrets that he could never live up to the expectations of his parents, and he wanted to be with Ember and his ghost squad. Our last case is of Anthony Powell. This case is a little different, as this is the case of one YouTuber taking the life of another YouTuber. Anthony Powell lived in Michigan and was born in 1981. He was described as quiet and shy, but he had an interest in media and film. When he was a teenager, he was diagnosed with depression, but he didn't take his medication. His family was Christian, and this is what he talked about on his YouTube. He was a self-proclaimed devout Christian. His family and him took their religion very seriously. On his YouTube, he was very opinionated and would share his harsh views. They were very hateful. He had a strong dislike for women and was very old-fashioned in his opinions. He believed that women were to serve their husbands and be housewives. He created his YouTube account in 2007 and was known as Tony48219, and he would talk about his Christian values and beliefs. He would also respond to other creators, arguing his point of view and his beliefs, especially to those YouTubers who were atheists. Some of these other opinions were that women, especially black women, were an issue and took the lives because he was against abortion. He would also talk on other religions and those who didn't believe in any religion. He would call them tools of Satan. He was also highly homophobic. He would get lots of attention because of these views, but he also got attention not because people disagreed. Some people actually agreed with him. He would use forums as well as YouTube and would attack other content creators and posters who were atheists, and he would respond with videos and would troll them. And one of these other content creators was Asia McGowan. She was described as friendly and warm. She loved drama and dance, and she had a real strong opinion for women's rights. She actually attended the same school as him. She was a little younger, but he saw her YouTube videos and her social media presence, and they were the complete opposite. He started to become obsessed with her content and became very aggressive with responses. And this wasn't just a one-off, this was very frequent. Anytime she posted, he would respond. He made catfishing accounts to also attack her. He called her unintelligent and not human because she's an atheist. But Asia continued to post her views herself. She didn't stop sharing her thoughts, and she actually made a video calling him out and all his catfish accounts, telling them to find something better to do, and he didn't take this well. He found out that they actually lived in the same place, and on the 10th of April 2009, Asia was studying at her school on her own. After school had finished, she was doing some homework, revising, and he then entered the classroom. He used a firearm and then he took her life. Students heard and called the emergency services, and then he took his own life. After the crime, it came to light that he had been talking on his YouTube about taking his own life, and it was also revealed how he stalked her relentlessly online. The shock was he didn't even do this in the dark. It was actually all online, but no one ever thought it would get to the point that it did. And that concludes our video today. It's a little different to what we usually do, not just staying in the UK, but I hope you enjoyed it. As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.